Nigeria's crisis did not begin today. It did not begin with one president, one party, or one military ruler. Nigeria's crisis is structural, it is historical, and if we're honest, it began with colonialism. The British did not create Nigeria for Nigerians. They created Nigeria in 1914 by amalgamating the Northern and Southern protectorates for administrative convenience and imperial profit. Their goal was not justice, democracy, or development. The goal was control of land, control of labor, trade, and resources. History shows this clearly. Colonial rule in Nigeria relied on extraction. Britain used taxation, coercive labor practices in some areas, indirect rule through traditional authorities, and coercive policing to maintain order and maximize revenue. By independence in 1960, Nigeria had inherited a state designed less as a nation for citizens and more as a machine for administration and resource extraction. And here's the tragedy. After independence, too many Nigerian elites did not dismantle the machine. They inherited it, they accepted it, occupied it, and they continued to use it against the Nigerian people. The British left, but the structure remained. A powerful center, weak accountability, and manipulated ethnic divisions. Security forces were often used more to protect authority than protect citizens, and an economy whose reward flowed upwards to a small, connected class. In other words, the colonial masters left and the local masters continued, which was by design anyway. This is the hardest truth in Nigerian history. But let's talk about constitution, because this is where many believe the problem begins. It is true that Britain heavily shaped Nigeria's constitutional development. Key colonial constitutions like the Clifford Constitution of 1922, the Richards Constitution of 1946, the Macpherson's Constitution of 1951, and the Littleton Constitution of 1954 were all designed under British colonial authorities. They were not products of full Nigerian popular sovereignty. However, the 1999 Constitution was drafted under the military regime of General Abdulsalami Abubakar by the Constitution Debate Coordinating Committee, drawing heavily from the suspended 1979 Constitution, and then promulgated by the military decree. That is the Constitution Nigeria uses today. You know what's bad about that? It was not produced through a fully democratic, people-driven process. It was handed down from above, not born from a sovereign national referendum. That matters because when a constitution is imposed rather than thoroughly uttered by the people, the state often serves power before it serves citizens. And look at the results today. Nigeria is one of the most resource-rich countries in the world. It is Africa's largest oil producer for much of the recent history, with proven crude oil reserves of around 37 billion barrels. It has vast gas reserves, fertile lands, solid minerals, and one of the largest populations on Earth, over 220 million people. Yet, despite this wealth, multidimensional poverty remains widespread. According to Nigeria's Bureau of Statistics, around 133 million Nigerians were classified in 2022 as multidimensionally poor. That means deprivation not only of income, but also of health, education, sanitation, and opportunities. Think about that contradiction for a bit. A rich country with poor people. You can't make this up. This is not an accident. This is what happens when the structure is designed to extract rather than distribute, to dominate rather than develop. Transparency International has repeatedly ranked Nigeria poorly on corruption perception. Billions of dollars in oil revenues have been lost over decades through theft, subsidy fraud, management, and illicit financial flows. Reports from Nigeria's Extraction Industry Transparency Initiative have documented major accountability gaps in the oil and gas sector. The World Bank has also repeatedly pointed to the paradox of low human development despite enormous national wealth. So, when the ordinary Nigerians say they are sitting on wealth and dying of poverty, that is not emotional exaggeration. It is empirically grounded. And corruption in Nigeria is not about greedy politicians stuffing cash into private accounts. It is systemic, it is institutional, and it is socialized. Too many fortunes, businesses, and political careers have been built not by productivity, but by access. Access to government contracts, import waivers, allocations, inflated projects, patronage networks, and impunity. That is why reform is resisted fiercely. For many people, corruption is not a side effect of the system. Corruption is the system. Some benefit from it directly, others survive around it, and many defend it when it favors their ethnic group, political camps, or personal network. In such an environment, accountability feels like a threat, because a better Nigeria would force many so-called successful people to explain the origin of their wealth. And then, there's the force. The police, the military, and other armed institutions are supposed to defend the law and the people. But too often in Nigerian history, they've been deployed to defend power against the people, from military coups to crackdowns on protest, including recent examples like the End SARS movement. Many Nigerians have seen coercive arm of a state used not as a shield for citizens but as a weapon of intimidation. That too is part of colonial inheritance. Security structures more accountable upwards to rulers than outwards to the people. So what is the argument? The argument is not that Britain is responsible for every failure in modern Nigeria. Nigerians must take responsibility for Nigeria. The argument is that colonialism created the architecture of exploitation, and post-independence elite preserved it because it served their interests. That is why the struggle is not just against one corrupt leader, it's against a corrupt design. And yet, there's hope, because no oppressive system survives forever once enough people understand how it works. Nigeria's greatest resource is not oil, it's not gas, it's not land, it's the Nigerian people. If citizens become politically conscious, historically informed, and locally organized, if they educate rural communities, mobilize young people, demand institutional reforms, insist on transparency, and stop worshipping wealth without questioning its source, then the structure can change. A country built to serve a few can be rebuilt to serve the many. But first, Nigerians must stop mistaking inherited oppression for government. It is clear that Nigeria was not designed for Nigerians. That is the problem. And redesigning it constitutionally, politically, economically, and morally is the task of this generation. So my call to all of us is that we need to get to work.